name's Greg and welcome back to Wargaming World. This is going to be a video on how to play Nuts version 4. Now, I released a video last week and the response was absolutely excellent. However, like a rookie, I made plenty of errors and mistakes. So this video, which is going to be a full game, does include lots of corrections and details, and really it should be good to follow if you've never played before. Now, for those who've played the game lots of times, it's going to be quite slow so that we can go into detail, so apologies for those who are looking for a quick game and quick action. This isn't the video for you if that's the case. However, for everybody who wants to see how you play Nuts version 4, then I think it certainly is something that will work out for you. So, just a final thank you to everybody who has subscribed to Wargaming World following this video. It'd be great if you could do that too. It'd be really super helpful. Any other comments as well, that'll be really great. And finally, thanks to Ed and to John for all of the great help through this week as well. So, on with the game.
Welcome back to Wargaming World, and to a new game of Nuts version 4. So the very first thing I would like to do is to say thanks very much to everybody for the fantastic feedback that I've received for the first video in terms of how to play Nuts version 4. Now, for those who saw it, you'll know that I said right at the start there's going to be quite a few errors, and there were. So the purpose of this video is to do two things, is to cover all of those errors, but as part of a full game. So it's a full game that I want to play, which is what I'd committed to do. And with the great response, with the people subscribing to the Wargaming World channel, I can now add additional videos, and great help again from Ed and from John. Really super putting this together. And that means I can also add additional things into this game, including vehicles. So we're going to see tanks on the board for the first time, go through the rules of that. And also we're going to have some elements of that from France 1940. So there's some new stuff brought out as well. So let's have a look about what we're going to do. The first thing you can see is the table, and this is the first correction. So in the first video I put across this area in particular and made a 3x3 grid. It wasn't too much of an error, in the sense that actually a table can be more or less any size. What's important is that we have 9 areas, if you like, to make up a grid so that we can set up the table. So what I will do for this game will be to start at the far left hand side and move all the way across as we get towards the river, and that will make a table that will be essentially 6x3. So we'll set up a grid, as you can hopefully see here, which moves across that tabletop, that area, and again we'll have a grid of 9 rectangles rather than 9 squares. Secondly, in terms of the game itself, we're going to have the Germans attacking this time, and the Germans have got 2 objectives. They're going to advance through this area, through this the right hand side, so you can see that 7, 8 and 9 of the grid are on now this side. An objective is to hold that farm, which is going to be a good advantage point for them, and then to clear through this area and to be able to advance through the orchard in the top left hand corner of the screen. What I'm also going to do is to try and ensure that each of the German NCOs as they appear will also be our characters. So these will be our stars, and each will have an individual skill and attribute. So I'll try and follow that as we go. So let's have a look at taking the first look at the forces. Before we do anything else, we need to have a look at the German force itself, and we need to see how many, in terms of the infantry, have we got. So it's a 5 plus 1d6. 6, so we've actually got 11 riflemen. We also need to test the quality of the leader, and with a 3 it means it's 4. So we've got a strong German unit here. So we've got 9 rifles. We've also got an LMG and a loader there. Also added a spare loader in here if we need to. And then we've got some characters. So we've got our NCO here. Now we've calculated that they've got a skill of, a rep rather, of 4. We've got a junior NCO here with a pistol. And my character. So what we're going to work out is just to say what's the leadership of this junior NCO. Then let's have a look at some extra skills for my character here. And what I've also brought into the rules this time is a medic, so we'll add him to this unit. So the junior NCO, now he in actual fact gets a 5, so that would be a 5 in terms of leadership, so there might be a little bit of tension between that NCO and the actual leader. Now for my character, I'm going to roll for the star advantage. I'm going to roll it 1 to 4 based on how it appears in the rulebook, so it's the first one. So that one is a star power, and that means ignoring certain damage that would normally apply, so we'll see if that appears in the game. I'm just going to apply 1 attribute, so the black dice indicates which table we're looking at, so table 3, number 5, and that means he's near-sighted. So it takes a -1 when it comes to shooting. And so I'm also introducing to the game here a Panzer II. Now this is going to be support to the infantry as we go, but you might find that in terms of the rulebook as it is at the moment, we don't have early war tanks. However, that is in production, so at some point that will be released. So I've got some details about what the Panzer II and other units will be, so I'll do them, and that's a bit of a teaser. So there's more expansions to come, but for this game, much as we would have with any other tank, we'll follow the rules and to see how that works. Also going to roll for the rep of the tank commander. It's 1, not a great one, so it's a rep of 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is to roll for the PEFs to see where the British might be before we deploy the Germans. And we've got 2 in 3, 1 in 2. And so here you can see I've got 2 I've got British naval figures, in fact, with Molotov cocktails. Here, just located on what is the 3rd point. 2nd is the one just up there. So those are our PEFs. And with the deployments in place in terms of the potential enemy, which is to the left of the Germans, so over here towards the church, the Germans can then start on their original plan, which is their objective to secure this farm, and then move left across towards the church and the orchard. Right, so we have turn 1, so let's see what activation we have. So both are activated, the Germans and the British, in terms of the potential enemy forces. And now is a great opportunity to cover off 2 of the errors that I made in the first video. So we've got a 2 and a 3 with our first roll, and that's great. In the first video, the very first roll was a 5 and a 6, so I made 2 key errors. The first is that I said that nobody could operate, and that's not true, because we had the star character who would have had a rep of 5, and he could have operated, so that was a relatively small error. But the greater error was the fact that I also talked about reinforcements and said that because we got more than 7, then we have an opportunity for reinforcements. We were then brought on the whole British platoon. I actually did that through the right process, so at least we can learn something from there. However, they couldn't have brought them on because we only roll for reinforcements if we get a 7 itself, so 4 and 3, 5 and 2, 6 and 1. Now with this example, with the 3 examples that we have, if we go left to right, if we were playing a 2-player game, then with that example, then it would be the green dice. So the British, who would have the opportunity of potentially getting reinforcements. With the other two, the 2 and the 5 and the 1 and the 6, it will be the German player who has the opportunity for reinforcements. But in this situation, it's a solo game. So here, there are opportunities for reinforcements, but they're only for, in this case, our German player. So what have we got in terms of the PEFs? Well, with the PEFs, we do have an opportunity to get reinforcements there too, and that's if we roll a double. Now, if we roll any double, we then go onto the table, and I'll show you on the, you should see it on the screen here, the page we go to. But even when we do that, we do need to re-roll to see how we go for that particular turn. Thanks for just bearing with me there while I went through some explanation with the dice. But back to the game itself. We've now got our German patrol advancing, and I've split it into some smaller groups. So we're approaching the target, which is the farm, and the first group we've got are this small patrol group with that junior NCO, the one with the rep of 5. So they're taking that advanced position. Second, we've got those 3 riflemen. They're going up against the hedge, knowing that potentially there we've got some British beyond. So they take up that position. The right-hand side taking cover here. Again, with the thought that the British might be on the left-hand side, we have another small group of 3 plus the main NCO. And in the centre we have my character in the middle, and we have our MG34 team advancing 2 and the medic. And then at the back there we've got our Panzer II. Now with the British we have a PEF rep of 4, so we need 4 or less to be able to move, and we're going to see how many times it passes. I'd also highlight that if you've got the compendium and you look on page 77, there is an alternative in terms of the distance that you move. So rather than 8 and 4, which is in the main rule book, it talks about 12 and 6 inches. And I'm going to move this, or use this rather, in this particular game. So let's start off. This is for the unit that are in, or the PEF rather, in number 2. Let's see how much activation they can have. And that's just 1, so they can move 6 inches. The second, which is by the church, or one of the 2 by the church, they can move 12 inches. And the third, they can only move 6 inches. So I hope you can see that the British have now moved in this direction. So this was the 12-inch. Let's go a little bit back so you can see into that. 12 inches away from the church. Moved 6 inches is just here into an area of cover by the church, and again the 6 inches here means that we've moved up with that unit in the second section. It's now moving towards the wooded area, and as a result we'll do what I think is one of the last corrections which are important to highlight, and it's with regards to PEFs. In the first video you'll remember that when we got 1, so in this rule you either get a 1, 0 or a 2, see whether you find the forces. We got a 1 and we thought that there may be forces there, and I removed the figure at that point. Now that is an error. We should have left the figure there, and it should have been the next time we tested with that particular figure we'd have rolled 3d6. So I removed it, that was an error, and we'll look to get it right this time. Let's take a look at turn 2. Now that could mean we've got a double, so it could mean we get reinforcements for the PEF. However, the way that's calculated is that we need to look at the enemy investment table, and when we have the investment level, it always starts at 3. If we were in an attack game, that's a +1 and it would go up to 4. So because it's an attack, there's more likely to have reinforcements. However, in this game we're going to play that it's just another patrol, so we -1. So the investment level is 2. And if the investment level is 2, we can only get reinforcements for the PEF reinforcements for the British when the double is either a double 1 or a double 2, and it's a double 4 here, so there's no addition to the British, and we need to re-roll. With a re-roll, 2 and a 1, which means that the British and Germans operating first, can both move. So the Germans advance cautiously. We didn't move, like a double move with our patrol. They've moved. If we'd have moved 8 inches, it would have been in the open. So we're keeping some cover. So the patrols moved further forward. The unit who were originally behind this wall are now moving over to the left-hand side to try and cover this hedge. Because we've had to go over a wall, we've halved the actual distance for movement, so it's gone 4 inches. This unit remains as it was, holding that position by the hedge, as does the machine gun team and the tank. So we're going to start with a PEF down here. You remember the rep is 4, and it's passed twice. And because we're going to use the rule, which is on page 77 of the compendium, they can move 12 inches. Now the figure's moved up to the hedge here. Can't be seen because we've got 2 hedges there for the figures who are on this side, so they can't quite see it, but we can see there is a line of sight with that patrol figure there just on the left hand side. So we're going to have to see which one sees each other first, and indeed whether there is whether there are any British troops there at all. With a line of sight there, we're going to see if the German can have a look to his left and see if we've got any potential enemy looking the other side of the hedge. The way we do this is that we roll 2d6. We look at the investment for the British, which essentially is a 3, but because we're playing a patrol game, we reduce the number. So the number goes down to 2. We need to get a 2 or a 1. And the reason why it's like that is because in a patrol game, it's perceived to be that there's potentially less engagement, so it makes it less likely. So let's see how many 1s and 2s we get, and we don't get any at all. So the result from that is 0, which means that's a false alarm. So in realities, there's nothing there, so we need to remove that figure. Let's roll for the PEF in the church, and that can move 1, so that's 6 inches. So that's just moved across about 6 inches towards this wooded area. And finally the PEF near the orchard, again 6 inches, and this one's moved into the edge of the wood. That was really interesting. So we're now over to turn 3. Let's see what happens, and we have both operating, and with a 4 we'll operate with the British first of all. The PEF should come originally from the church. Now that can move 12 inches, and we have a repeat situation here, so we need to roll and see whether the initial German, we'll see on the left hand side whether we have any British troops. 2d6 needing 1s and 2s to see something. Double 6 is certainly not. Now as I've removed a second of the 3 PEFs, it means that only leaves this one, and we will get some interaction there with them, so that's where the forces are going to be coming from. Let's see if that final figure can operate. Just 6 inches, and so we position us to there. Now this front patrol is now 12 inches away from the farm, so what we'd like to do is to move fast to get to the farm, get the 12 inches there or thereabouts, and how we do that is that we could move our 8 inches, and then we need to test against the rep to see if we pass, and then we can go another 4 inches. So in line with our advance, we've got 3 rifles here who are on looking over this hedge. We had another unit which came across again to the left hand side to look at potential British forces. The 3rd unit, which is the one that had my star in it, has moved on the right hand side of the hedge here, and the Panzer II is supporting behind it, and as I mentioned beforehand, we want to move fast with our unit right at the front there. However, we are now line of sight with the British in that wooded area, and we know that something's going to appear, so let's take a look at that. We take a final test. here we get a 2 and a 4. So that would give us normally 1, but when we look at 1, it tells us, because it's the last unit, we now move as if we've passed with 2d6. And if we pass with 2d6, we need to roll again, just to see whether the enemy are in a defensive position. So we'll roll 1d6, and it's a 3. A 3 means we go straight to the reinforcement table, and we need to roll 1d6. It's a patrol game, so for the investment level, we are getting 3 minus 1 for the patrol, and so we add a d6 plus 2. That's a 7. And so our German forces are surprised, as indeed might you be, because it's not in fact British forces that they've found, but a whole platoon of French infantry. So I just need to work out exactly how many men have arrived, so I need to roll for that. So for the size of the French force, we've already got a light machine gun and crew there, so that's 2 men and 4 rifles with them, and we can have up to another 4 within each section. There are 3 sections, so I'm going to roll 3 dice, and of course I've changed the dice from green to blue as we're on to the French. And if we get a 5 and 6, we ignore it, they get no more men in their section. So here we can see we've got 1 with 1, 1 with 3, and 1 doesn't get any at all. In addition to the machine gun team and the rifles, we have our captain there. This is a VB team, so it's grenade launchers effectively. We've also got an anti-tank team at the back there. We've got a light mortar. I've added a medic as well, so we've got a bit of balance there between the French and Germans. We now need to test and see who sees whom first. So if you remember, our German NCO, or junior NCO, has a rep of 5, our French commander is 4, so we roll with 5 and 4 dice respectively, and we need to get a 1, 2 or 3 to see what we get for insight advantage. So the French have 3 and the Germans 2, so the French see first and will act first. Now we might think that the easy thing from now is that the French fire and when we work from there, but that's just not the case, because this is a non-player enemy, and therefore we need to determine how it operates so we can keep it a good game from a solo perspective, and that's exactly how it works. The Germans have detected the French, but we don't know whether the French are on a patrol, on a defensive kind of mission, or an attacking mission. So let's roll and find out. 1, 2 and it's a patrol, 3, 4 defensive, and 5, 6 it's on attack. And they're on attack. Now although the French have appeared as a patrol, they haven't reacted in all the same way, simply because the whole platoon haven't seen the Germans. In fact, it's this section here on the edge of this wooded area, and we're going to roll and see what they do next. So the first thing to understand is that this particular section has a rep of 4. The French are on the attack, therefore we're not taking a reaction test in terms of their defence. What we want to find is to see how it reacts in terms of its immediate movement. So we need to take 2 dice. A 1 and a 6 gives us a result of 1. So for the first time I'm just showing the rules here, and it shows that we had a 1. So if the non-playing enemy, the infantry, outnumbers the player by 2 to 1, and it does, then it will fire if it can, and so now we need to see how the firing, what the result is. Now what we're firing here is the Chatellerault 24-29 machine gun. It's not as effective as a German Spandau MG34, so we're going to have it with 4 dice rather than 5. And in total we have 7 rifles and the machine gun firing at the German patrol unit. Now as we're firing I can make a correction from the first video, and it's how I explained the sort of swathe of the firing. What I mean, or what I should have meant from that, is that our machine gun, for example, it can hit its total length, its final width would be 4 inches, and therefore it could hit a maximum of 4 men if they were in that gap, as it were. The rifles, however, they just hit one person, so even though we have a 1 inch width, they can only hit one man in it, and not 2, 3 or 4 as I was explaining in the first video. So here's a correction. So therefore we have 7 rifles firing an individual shot, and then we have the machine gun. It has a potential of hitting 4 if it could, but obviously we've got 3 in our target. So I've got 4 dice for the machine gun. So my first 2 dice are going to be the nearest man to him, 6 and a 4, and then 1 shot on the other 2 men. The green dice is the figure in the middle. This means in total the first figure has 2 hits, 1 equals 10, the other equals 8. The middle one again has 10, and the one on the end has 7. Now a 7 is just a miss, and an 8 is a miss because if you remember they were moving fast. We were going to roll for that to see how far they could go, but they got shot at this point, but they were moving fast, so an 8 is a miss. However, a 10 is a hit, so we need to have a look at the impact for those 2 figures. Now we'll take a look at the figure on the left hand side first of all. It's got a rep of 4, so we need to get either a 1, 2, 3, and you would duck back. 1, 2, 3 and you would duck back is the aim. Unfortunately it's a 5. With the rep or higher, if it was a 4 or a 5, then he's out of the fight. 6 would have meant that he was killed. The second target had a rep of 5. That's a 1. Now that would mean that he would duck back. However, it needs to make sure that he survives the firing from the rifles. The rifles would have fired at the same time as the machine gun. So I'm going to say that the front guy will get 3 shots from the rifles, and the next 2 will get 2 each. So the blue dice are going to be for the first guy, and then we've got 2 with the green and 2 with the red. We have a rep of 4 as we did beforehand. So that's the output. The guy who was hit already with the machine gun has taken a hit with a 10 there. Has been hit by the rifle. The 8 and the 6 don't count because, well, at the time he was hit he was running fast, so we still need to roll for him and see what the output is. The guy in the middle with an 8 and a 7, again that doesn't affect him because he's running fast. And then we have again the 8 and the 6 on the final guy, so again he's missed. Now I do still need to roll for them to see if those 2 actually run into cover, but we've also got to take a morale test for them as well. First of all, let's have a look at the guy who's been hit by the rifle. As we were, he's already out for the count, so all we want to do is make sure we don't roll a 6. In that case he would be killed. But we have, and that's our first casualty of today. Very simply, these 3 have dashed across, and the guy nearest to the French has been hit by 2 shots from the machine gun and 1 rifle and has been killed outright. Now we need to take a man down test on these 2. But we do have the junior NCO who has a leadership and rep of 5. The man down test, let's start with the leader whose rep is 5, that's 1 to the group, and the junior NCO with his roll, that's 2 in addition to his 1, so that's 3, so he'll be fine. Rifleman with him, that's another 1, so it'll be a 2, he'll be fine also. Now, as a result, they will carry on. Now, if you remember, when the machine gun fired, the junior NCO, he had to duck back. So he would have to move up to 6 inches into cover. However, I'm going to go through with the movement in terms of moving fast. A, because they're going to go towards cover. B, because we didn't do it in the rules in the first video. So I haven't forgotten that he would potentially move behind the hedges, go backwards. However, that means he will be separated out from the other man. So I'm going to say that they both make a dash for cover over towards the farm. For our 2 characters then to be able to move fast and sprint, they've got to pass their rep test. It's actually 2 dice, so you could move up to an additional 8 inches. We'll start with the command with 5 for the rep. passes twice, so he could go up to 8 inches. The other individual with a rep of 4, well, he can go 4 inches. There we have it. The two individuals, one's gone behind the wall for some cover, and the junior leader has managed to get inside the building for some extra cover. Now, sorry that took a time. It was just trying to make sure we covered that correctly, and here we still have the rest of the unit still to move. So let's have a look about what movement we take. So we've moved this unit forward. It's my character, and also we have the MG34 moving up into a support position. We also have the Panda 2. Now, the Panda 2 has moved up. It could fire directly at the farm if it wanted to, but it can't move, turn its turret towards the French and then fire. So we need to do that in the next turn. It's a new turn, and this time it's a 6 and a 5. We do have 2 Germans who can operate on a 5. The leader in the building, he's going to order the other soldier to get into the farm along with him, and then to try and clear that out. And the second is my character. So my character is going to order for the machine gun team that's with his group to move up to the corner here of the hedge and fire on the French there if we can. I don't think I mentioned in the last turn that because the French are on an attacking mission now, it means the Germans are on a defensive mission, and that will make a difference in terms of investment levels, things like that. So that's now a change of a focus in the game, so it's no longer a patrol mission for the Germans. And so this unit is in sight, the French here, so we're going to have to take a test who might see the other first. It's an insight character test. 5 with my character, 4 for the French. And taking a look at that, it looks like we've got 4 for the Germans, 3 for the French, so the insight goes to the Germans. 5 dice, firing the LMG. As a result, the first 4 figures on the right hand side have to duck back, but the 5th one is the machine gun. It's not outgunned, so it will return fire. Returns fire with 4 dice. That's quite a good roll. That means my character and the second loader both have to duck back 6 inches, and the front 2, including the one with the machine gun, have been hit, and we need to roll for that. The man with the machine gun is the black dice. 2 4s. Unfortunately, it means both of them are out of the fight. 2 men out of the fight, but we have a medic, so if he gets activated in the next turn, he'll see if we can sort them out and patch them up. Next turn, and both can operate. Let's see if these 2 can recover. First thing, let's roll a leader die. I've got a 5. That's 2, so that's +1 to them both. Character passes 2 more. The guy just passes 1, so he has 2 in total. Both will, I think, be fine. Yes, they are. They can carry on. So our medic now acts on 1 person. So we need to roll 2d6 against his rep. See how he works. It means that he's only able to work on 1 man at a time, and indeed only on each person once. So let's see what the results are. A rep of 4. So he's got 1. Unfortunately, this guy closest to him remains out of the fight. The 2 characters have moved back to the original position. Depending on how we go in the next turn, he'll see whether we'll get the machine gun off him so we can get back up and running. German rifles are going to stay in position here. It's in a good defensive position. However, I've moved the turret of the tank. Now we're going to have a look and see if we can fire at the French. First thing we need to do is an insight test. Now, because the tank's moved into this position, then the majority of the French can see him. However, we're only going to do a test with the anti-tank team, because the machine gun team aren't going to fire at it unless they're going to get close and try and fire through the viewing holes. So we are going to have a 1-to-1 against that. So the French have 4 and the Germans 3. And it's the French who see first. Well, I've taken a look, and irrespective of whether the French can see earlier or see better than the Germans, it's just too far away. If we had a bazooka, something like that, the range is 10, and then long range is up to 30. We're about 30 here. Well, maybe these sort of boys' rifles, which is what we're firing, can perhaps fire longer than a bazooka. It's certainly at some kind of long range, and the best we can get, which is a -2, with a rep with a rep of 4, with 2d6 is going to be a 0. So nothing from the French, so it's just the German to fight. So we're firing with a coax machine gun, so I think it might actually have a twin coax machine gun, but either way we're going to do 6 dice, reps 3. Right, all of them with the 4 and the 3 6s. Those 4 are they're going to be knocked back. They're going to have to duck back. But these 2, the 8 and the 9, are both hits. So what happens? The one on the left-hand side is the red dice, and so we have 1 kill on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, he's just going to duck back. But now I've got somebody killed. There's going to be quite a few people needing to take a test for man down. He's killed here, so the 2 nearest to him will need to take a man down test. Now the machine gunner is going to be the temporary leader of this squad, as the NCO got knocked back in the previous turn. So we need to see whether that leader we can get a 4. Let's see if the leader operates first. See if we can get a 4. Yes, so that's 1. 2 dice for each, with a rep of. So that's another 2 for one of them. So in the end, one has 3, the other has 2. They're fine and they'll carry on. Now the French go. If you remember, it's the this is an NP enemy, so a non-player enemy. So we need to roll and see how they react and what they will do. It's on an attack mission, so let's roll 2d6. The rep is 4, and they pass with 2. Now they're testing as a whole platoon here. I know we've had some who have been knocked back, so we won't move those, but with the remainder, the platoon will advance and move towards the German forces. So a general advance with the French. I've tried to leave some of the figures at the back there that had to duck back, and they're towards the back of the woods here, behind the trees as well. But as it stands, the platoon moves forward. We will begin to split into different groups and sections. They're certainly getting close to the Germans here, who are looking fairly light in numbers. We do have the tank here, which can be fairly devastating, I would guess, with coax, and it's difficult to knock it out, although we do have our boys here behind the tree, but I think it might just be weight of numbers in terms of a French advantage. New turn. We roll the German dice. Oh, that's a 7. So we might well be looking at reinforcements. All the units can move. Let's have a look at the reinforcement table. French are attacking. +6. So the factor is we've got 4. So normally our rate is 3. +1 because we're attacking. +6. So I think that might well be armour. What section does it come into? So we'll go into the D3 for that. And so that's in section 3. The question is, how many vehicles do we get? So 1 to 4 we have 3. So it's 3 vehicles. I'm going to bring on different vehicles just to have them onto the table. Normally it'd be a platoon, so we might have 3 of the same armoured cars or tanks or what have you. But just to have a bit of variety, I'll bring them onto the table, and I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference in terms of the outcome of this particular game, but it'd be useful just to bring them on. With French armour going onto the table, we're more or less certainly coming towards the end of this game. But I just thought I'd show some of the options that we could have. We've got potentially a panhard here, just at the front. Then we have the huge Char-B. There's the R35, the Renault R35. Could be using the Somo, the cavalry tank. And finally, all the way at the back here, we've got the P16, rather a redundant piece, but certainly also used in 1940. So lots of options here, and as I've mentioned before, there is a campaign supplement coming out. I think it might well be at the start of 2021. It'd be great to see all of these types of things on the table. So I'm going to move the forces forward. We've got an activation of 4, so let's see how the infantry engage, and then we'll see if we can get the tanks to duel the things that have been activated here. So we need to do lots of tests, some including those units that duck back beforehand. We've got a unit up here to see whether it can go into combat, whether it charges. We've had some support. All of these units here can now see the Germans on the other side. We've got some firing to do. We've got 2 units of French. One has an NCO. The nearest one, this one, doesn't have a group, but one will assume a leadership command. All of them have a rep of 4, so we just need to do them individually to see how they work. The leadership of the first unit passes, so we add 1 to this. Now both units are actually at above half strength, so there isn't a need to do an individual test for all of them, because we've got 1 for a leader and a minimum of 1, or if they get 1, they will carry on anyway. So let's just test the leadership of the second unit. So let's have a look at the second unit. But the leader doesn't affect them this time, so we do need to roll for each, including him. We're going to do 5 rolls, and if any of them come out as a 5 and 6, then the individual will hunker down. So let's start with the NCO. No, he's fine. Do this all at once with different coloured dice. Are there any of those which come out as a 5 and a 6 to both of the colours? Yes, there is one. So the black dice there means we've got 1 of the individuals who will hunker down. So these 2 sections now move into action, and we've got more of the French really to overwhelm the Germans. Let's take a look at this melee at the top here. First of all, we need to take a test whether we will charge into contact. So let's have a look at the leader there. 4, yes we will. A charge test, and the red dice is my character, which is 5 for the rep. Well, the impact of that with the French 7 to the Germans 3 is that when they make their charge, the Germans can't fire in advance, and so we move straight to melee. In the action here we've got 2 onto 1 each time, so we're going to roll effectively 9 dice, because you roll 2d6 plus all of them have a weapon like a bayonet or a knife to fight with, and then we apply it separately for the individual. I'll show you what I mean. There's 2 figures fight against the German. The German is the black dice. So here the German has scored 1 with his dice, 2 of them being a 6. One of the Frenchmen has scored 2, the other 3. So the German is defeated by 1 and by 2, the figures. So that means by 1 it would have meant that he gets knocked out, but by 2 it means he's killed. And we do the same for my character. Remembering here he has a rep of 5. In this situation, one of the French, the green dice, is killed because it's defeated by 2. The others are equal, so they roll again, but this time we reduce 1 rep each. 4s and 3s respectively. And so this time we can see that the French have 2, the Germans 3, so the French soldier is knocked out. We'll need to take a man down test for all of the remaining figures. Now, before we do other tests such as man down, etc., and the shooting, I'm going to think that really the Panhard and the Char-B and the Panzer II can actually see each other. There's only a tree really that's in the way, so I think it would be a good thing if we could see how battle takes place between 2 vehicles. Another close detail to employ here also is to say the front unit, or the front vehicle, we've got the commander who's looking out here, but the Char-B is buttoned down, which means we're actually looking through a much smaller space. So you should see this on the screen now, and that makes an impact in terms of firing. Firstly, let's have a look at the leadership of the Panhard. 3, so we've got a leadership of 4, and then with the Sharby, it's going to be 4 also. 3 has a leadership of 3, so we have 4 dice for the French, 3 for the Germans. We need 1, 2, 3s to C. However, what's important also is that the French have also moved, so they need to get a higher rate than the Germans in order to be successful and C first. So we can see from that that we've got 3 for the French, just the 1 for the Germans, so the Panhard certainly sees first. Let's do the same with the Char-B. So I want to see whether the Panzer II reacts to which of the 2 vehicles. So let's have a quick look at that. We can see from this that the French get 2 and the Germans only get 1, so the Char-B certainly sees first. So both the Char-B and the Panhard move into position and then act on an unsuspecting Panzer II. Things to note here is that in a tank you can look for the rep of a number of the individuals themselves. I've just made it easy here and said that the rep is going to be of that leader, but we can do that for the gunner, you can do it for the driver, etc. So there's all that things to consider. And one of the points in the rules is that the tank needs to be halted. Now I'm unclear what that means. Is that if we've moved into position, that might mean that we need to fire the next turn, although the fact that we've moved and we're now in sight, to me, means that they would fire at each other. So I'm going to make that as an assumption, and I'll find that as we go. So that's one point for clarification, I guess. So first thing to do is that we need to roll and see if we hit. So we're going to start with a Panhard, 2d6 needing 4s or less. And we've made 2 hits. I'm also going to try the Char-B as well, and that would be a miss. So we've hit with the Panhard. The Panzer II would fire back, but let's see what the impact of the Panhard is, because it might knock it out. Now the Panhard's main gun, its armour piercing is 5, and in terms of hitting the tank, it's definitely in the side. So we're going to look at that now. Its armour, unfortunately, is only 1. It's not going to be hit on the turret. It's not hull down, so that's why we're going to look at that. So the difference between the 5 and the 1 is 4. So it's 4s or below to see what the impact is. Difference of 4, we roll 2d6 and how successful we might be. That's 1. And with a difference of 1, the tank is disabled. It means the crew get out and they'll have to duck back, but that unit is out of action. And at this point I'm going to stop. We could continue quite obviously with the game, firing, shooting between the French here as they advance and the Germans, but the Germans haven't had any reinforcements, and with the Panzer II being knocked out, really the French will just come in to mop up. It's been an interesting game, particularly because it shows actually in terms of nuts, you can get a lot of figures onto the board and a lot of activity, and yeah, it also means that you can get a situation where you've ended up with just a squad against a platoon plus armour. So there's lots of variety here. So just want to say thanks for everybody watching. Hopefully there aren't too many errors through this video, and the ones that we've corrected through the last video, it'll be really helpful for people as they get to know the game and get used to it and how they play. What I'd like to do ideally is to try and do a game where I won't put a lot of comments on them. I'll just play the game, so it'll quicken up, you get more turns, and then hopefully we might get reinforcements as well for the other side, whether we use British and Germans or French or what have you. So I hope you've enjoyed the variety as well. I thought I'd bring some French in just as a bit of a surprise to the unit, and indeed added some armour as well. So it was good to be able to bring on some of these tanks, armoured cars, etc., and we'll see more of those in the future. The very last point, and again a thank you, is that the channel, the YouTube channel, Wargaming World, has jumped hugely since got involved with the Nuts game and the 2-hour Wargaming group. So thanks very much for those who've joined, and really be grateful if other people join as well, and then we can add further thoughts, ideas, discussions about how we improve the game and add more variety, and we'll have more videos in the future. So thanks very much.